Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of 9 to 5 Wellness Podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that I have been wanting to really dig deep into. And that topic is very much related to corporate wellness, well-being of 9 to 5ers. And here's the thing. I believe we all know that we are in the middle of a workplace crisis. Burnout, quiet quitting, teams running on empty just to get through the week. So in this episode of 9 to 5 Wellness, I'm sitting down with a very special guest who brings joy. Yes, you heard that right. She brings joy to the workplace. She's here to make the case that joy isn't a reward you earn after success or after you finish a big project. It's a strategic tool that changes how leaders lead and how teams perform. My guest today is Bosee Akheduri. She is the joy amplifier. As a motivational speaker, corporate trainer, author, and CEO of Goal and Grind LLC, she partners with high-achieving professionals and forward-thinking organizations to leverage joy as a strategic advantage. In addition to her work at Goal and Grind, she has led a distinguished career in corporate social responsibility at Boeing, Salesforce, and JP Morgan Chase. She's the author of Stay Joyful Method, Using Joy as a Tool to Rise, Lead, and Redefine Success. And today, we are diving into joy with Bosee. Welcome to the podcast, Bosee.
Thank you so much for having me here today, Aisha. And I'm really excited to bring this to your listeners because I truly believe everyone needs to understand that they deserve joy and that joy can be a strategic tool in their life.
Absolutely. And we need more joy. We all need more joy in our lives. Why not, right? So let's start here. I want to start with what's going on. And I did touch upon it in the intro, but the problem, and especially my listeners who are busy 9 to 5ers, when I say busy, they're we don't have time to even take care of ourselves. I don't know what you're talking about. So a lot of times, though, what's happening is they're not realizing it, but they are actually burnt out. They're burnt out employees and or burnt out leaders. And we have probably worked at an organization that's too stiff, rigid, and where people really can't fully embrace, who they are. The culture itself isn't sustainable. But everybody's okay, let's just pass through the day. Let's just get to the end of this week. So in other words, I would like to think or say that it's lack of joy. So if someone hits play right now or has hit play on this episode, what can they expect to walk away with by the time it ends? What's the one thing that could actually change how they feel about Monday morning?
First off, I want to say, and you're going to be surprised by this, some people like rigid.
Okay.
Right? So everybody's joy is different. And I think that's the most important thing to remember is that not only is your joy important, but it is important to embrace exactly what it is. So in order to have those joyful Monday mornings, it's about understanding yourself. And so the big thing that I want today's viewers to walk away with is choice in what joy means to them. And that's the empowerment of it, as well as we're going to talk a lot about how to use it. I'll summarize it, though, with these 2 key tools that I talk about in the book. I talk about in my trainings. I can't talk about them enough, okay?
Tell us about it.
Is the joy bubble. And the joy bubble is a simple reminder of what brings you joy. So being able to actually spend time with yourself and take out a piece of paper, draw a circle on it, and in that circle, write down everything that brings you joy. And what that does is it acts as a constant reminder to you of what joy means to you. The second part of the tool is your accomplishments journal, because it's not just enough to know what you enjoy doing. You also need to know what you're actually skilled at enough to get paid for, right?
Yes.
That's what a job is. So the combination of them together, that accomplishment journal during the difficult times will remind you what you're capable of, right?
Absolutely.
And the joy bubble reminds you of why you're doing it. So we'll talk more about that, but I want to say it's so important to understand your joy is important, my joy is important, and they might not be the exact same thing. So some folks like a stiffer work environment. Some folks like a more relaxed work environment. The more important thing to know is which one is for you.
I like that. So what I'm hearing from you is that my definition of joy might be different than your definition of joy. And we have to like do our own work to explore that. Okay, that's great. Now, let's back up a little bit because I want to know about you and your journey. And my listeners always want to know about our guest's journey. So before we get into any framework or method, tell us your story. How did joy become your life's work? What do you mean when you say joy is a strategic tool rather than something you earn after you have already succeeded?
And, Aisha, this is a great question. And I also have to tell you, it's always the hardest question for me because I'm all about amplifying others' joys that I forget. It did start with someone. It started with me. And what essentially happened is that I was raised by a mother who taught me to believe in my joy. And so I thought that was the norm. I thought everybody was focused on their joy. So I, from a young age, was very, curious about different things in life and explored my joy to the point where I never fit into a box, right? There were a lot of things that I did that people would say, how did you do that? And I thought, well, I was curious about it. I enjoyed it. And I found a way to get more of it instead of less of it. So, for example, the big thing was I moved to Chicago from Oklahoma 12 years ago with no job and no network. Everyone thought this was wild.
It does sound wild.
Right. Like you have a great job, like you have a great network, you have great family and friends here. But I knew two things. I don't like driving. I don't like it. So why am I spending so much money on it? I'm literally not spending my money according to my own joy, which is what we all need to do. You need to spend your money according to your joy because then you'll feel good about how you're spending. So I knew I needed to be in a city with public transportation. Also, my love of people translates to a love of international travel so that I get to know different types of people.
Wonderful.
So when I flipped the script, got rid of the car payment, insurance, et cetera, I actually was spending money in according with my joy. And that was a pivotal moment in my life because looking back on that, people kept asking, how did you do it? I knew what kind of life I wanted. I knew what kind of job that I wanted when I got to Chicago, and I went after it.
That's such a great story, girl.
Thank you.
I love it. I really love it because I think a lot of people I don't want to say they don't take necessarily always time, but a lot of times it's not in our awareness or they don't know that this is what's keeping them from living to their full potential too.
Exactly. And when you live in your full potential, you really light up. People don't realize, a lot of my clients have shared with me that you're living life. You're doing all the shoulds, right? The things that they tell you should be doing. And one day you get to a point and you're like, what am I doing here? And that's where I come in, working with individuals or working with teams to really get to the core of why are you doing this work? Why are you leading this team?
Yeah.
Let's remember what's bringing you joy about it and what have you accomplished? Let's celebrate you.
Yeah. And is it in alignment with what brings you joy? And I do want to underscore and highlight something you started out with, that your mom raised you in a way that you felt like joy was the purpose of life. Mm-hmm. Such a gift.
Such a gift. Such a gift. And I did.
Go mom.
Right. Go mom. She's amazing. And I did not know as a young Black girl growing up in Oklahoma that I would grow up to be this very strong and successful Black woman who is now empowering others to enjoy their lives. Enjoy all parts of your life.
Yes. Setting an example for the women behind you. There you go. Okay. Let's shift gears towards workplace culture and what's going on. We are in the middle of, I like to call it a crisis. It's a strong term to use, and I understand that. But there is a lot of disengagement. And within the organization, people are running on empty just to get through the week. Let's talk about how it's tied to the whole workplace culture right now?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the root cause of it?
A lot of it is about people not understanding their purpose, right?
Yeah.
So that overlap between their income generating skills and their joy. And where is that overlap? That's purpose. A lot of people talk about purpose, but not a lot of people define it. And it comes from leaders. And that's why I'm so adamant about working with leaders, because you don't need to announce joy. You don't need to walk in the room and say, we've got to have joy.
Yeah.
That's not natural. What leaders, and I want to pause here and say, individual contributors are also leaders. You are the leader of your life and your career. And we have to all remember that. And so when you are a leader at work, whether it's by title or influence, you've got to be walking into the workplace and being curious with people and cheering for your fellow coworkers. You need to acknowledge their accomplishments. You need to get curious and ask them, how can we really amplify together in the workplace?
Yeah.
You need to understand what they're good at. You need to understand what the company stands for. And you need to go back and get grounded in, why did you even apply to work here in the first place? Why did you want to be a vice president and lead this team? There was a reason. And the more that we tap into that together collectively at work, the more we're able to come up together. You know, Gallup did a great study about joy in the workplace. And they found that nearly half of people who were not finding joy in the workplace were actually looking for outside employment.
They were already looking at other places.
Yes. And so as a leader, we really have to understand that joy is an imperative. It is honestly something that if you don't have on your team, then you have a retention issue. And when you have a retention issue, you have financial issues.
Yes.
Because you look at other studies and it shows that to replace a current employee can take anywhere to 50 to 200% of their salary.
Absolutely. I think a lot of organizations are not, or they come to that realization way too late in the game.
Exactly.
Because the employees have or team members have already checked out.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And by the time you're getting that resignation from that team member who's probably valuable to your organization, it's too late, right?
It's too late. And so that's why investing in your team, again, regardless of if you are a leader by title and you have a group within you, or if you're a leader by influence, you truly can, as an individual contributor, be a leader by influence. And that's when you have that opportunity to reach across to another team and another function and really get to know what their work is and how your work complements each other's work and how you can make greater impact to the company and the ROI.
I want to underscore this over here, that every employee, every team member in the organization is a leader. They're contributing in their own way, right? So you're a leader at work, you're a leader at home, whatever that, framework looks like, you are a leader. So just owning that and just, I think, putting that on that circle on the paper, right? Writing that down, I think that would flip the script and bring more joy to more people. So since we are on the topic of leadership, let's talk a little bit more about it. So leadership, and I know you have worked with so many Fortune 500 companies. What does a leader who's operating from joy look like on their team and within the organization versus someone who's not?
Who's not? Let's look at who's not first so that we can diagnose the problem. When you have a leader whose team is not being led from a place of joy, there's a lack of understanding and clarity. And what I mean by that is if someone on your team is asked, what's our team's mission or what are our team's goals?
Yeah.
And everybody on the team answers it differently, there's no synergy. There's no understanding. There's no collective purpose. So just like you work on your own individual purpose, you work collectively as a team to understand the team's purpose.
Yes.
And that is so imperative because when there's that lack of clarity, your team will struggle to get work done. They'll struggle to get work done with external partners as well as internal partners from other functions in the organization. So that's one thing, that lack of clarity and congruence. and alignment. The other thing is teams that don't have joy have much higher turnover rate. And so you're looking at things from an ROI standpoint and specifically financial. You're spending more because there's more of that churn, more of that burn.
Gotcha.
One example that I like to give is if you've ever been a hiring manager, you've interviewed a lot of people. I'm sure you have. I know I have too.
Absolutely.
And I know a lot of listeners
Yeah.
have as well. There is a huge difference. You can have the two resumes and they look so similar. People can do the same job, but one person comes into the interview and they're ready to go. You can
Yeah.
tell this work lights them on fire.
Yes.
That is going to give them more sustainability versus the person who comes in and they're sitting there like, someone told me to apply for this, or they said I should apply for this.
Yes.
And those are the types of things that I think about because there was a time when I applied for some roles because someone told me I should, not necessarily because I wanted to. And I am so grateful that I was denied and rejected those roles and they went to someone else because I would have not been living in my purpose. And if I'm being truly honest with myself, I wouldn't have been a good teammate there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Leaders that are leading from a place of joy are starting at the interview process all the way through how are they acting and behaving and showing from an example that it's important to know everyone's strengths and weaknesses. It's important to know everybody's operating rhythm on the team so that you can create those synergies.
So what I'm hearing from you is that if someone is not aligned with the purpose of that position or that role, they're not able to show up fully as themselves. And that's going to show. There's no hiding it. It's
Right.
going to show eventually. And then you're probably not contributing your best output to the team too. So I want to talk a little bit about your framework here. You teach something called Stay Joyful method, and we were talking about it yesterday a little bit. So walk us through it. How does it actually work in a real corporate setting? And what's the biggest misconception people have about joy at work? Because quite honestly, I'm going to tell you, I've held so many roles. Joy is not a word that people think belongs in the boardroom and or corporate setting and or workplace. So, I want to bring it in. So help me.
Yes. And I love this question because I get skepticism.
Yeah.
Of course, people are like, why joy at work?
I'm not
And
surprised.
it's the sustainability factor and the burnout factor of making sure that not only your team, but also yourself, you are equipped. So think of it this way. When you set goals from a place of joy, you're setting them up for success rather than failure because inevitably there are going to be difficult times. I'm not saying with joy that everything is easy. I'm saying it's sustainable and it creates a sustainable model for you and those around you. So with the Stay Joyful method, there's actually 4 parts to it. And the first part is all about yourself getting centered on your joy so that you can create goals from a place of joy. The second part is about you understand yourself, you understand your joys. That's when you start to build community in a way that you become a magnet for the community that you will grow and flourish in.
Yeah.
And that's really, that's what I call networking. Everybody can think networking is like this scary term, but if you've set goals from a place of joy, you have clarity for yourself and you bring that into every room you come into. And people can see your energy and excitement around it because you're actually talking about something you're passionate about. Okay, so that's part 2. Part 3 is when you take that into the next level with leadership, because you've gone through part 1 and your goals are rooted in joy and purpose for yourself. Then you get to part 2 where you've built community. Part 3 is you are looking at others and you are leading by example and you are creating space to talk about strengths as well as weaknesses within your organization so that you can build on that. And that's the work that I do, like when I go in with teams for their offsites and guide them through what that leadership part looks like and creating synergies and alignment within the team. And then part 4 is honestly the hardest part because that's when you get to more reflection and you think about, oh, how do I use joy whenever I'm in difficult seasons or going through grief? And how do I call upon it? And so it really is looking at your life in a 360 and making sure that you have synergies rather than friction.
5-part framework. Okay. So just to summarize for our viewers and listeners, the first part, which I love, is defining your own definition of joy or whatever that is. Like, let's say there are 3 or 4 components that you really enjoy. You're putting them on that paper in a circle, right? Second part is then, and I love your definition of this second part, where you are attracting other people in your universe, right? Bringing them into your universe and creating a community who are kind of like aligned with your definition of joy. The third part, you have to guide me through. I'm blanking out now. It's the leadership. So then you show up as that leader, right? Or set that example for others.
Yes.
The fourth,
joy in difficult seasons.
I love the concept. However, I am going to be very honest with you. I think a lot of people would have trouble doing that. Like,
It's difficult.
yeah, right?
It's not easy. That's why whenever I get to the fourth part, I always say, this is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Because it truly is. And I know from experience myself.
Yeah. And then the fifth part, I think, would be just bringing all of this together, right?
Yes.
All of this comes full circle, almost like full circle. And I also want to underscore something you said, which I'm not saying that people say that, but there's probably like an inherent undertone all the time that, oh, just because this framework is laid out here, now it's going to be easy.
It's not.
When you said it's not easy, that's what I want to underscore here. It's so true because you know what? I think we have become like this culture of like comfort and finding ease everywhere, and instant gratification goes along with that. And I don't think so. Like when we are laying out a framework or we are laying out a formula for bringing joy to your life, what we are doing here, it doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable.
No, heavens no.
And
that's why I say the foundation is understanding what brings you joy. Because if you don't, you will not be able to get through the tough times, right? Like this book, I didn't know becoming a published author was going to be so hard.
Oh my
Like,
gosh, girl. It's one of the hardest things I have done. When I met you yesterday and I said, oh, you put in a lot of work into this book, I can tell. And it's not easy. But don't you feel amazing?
I feel amazed by myself. I know that sounds
Right?
wild, but I've talked a long time about recognizing accomplishments. And this was a big moment for me because I really had to recognize what I put into this. This was a self-funded project.
Wow.
And
You go.
thank
No,
you.
for real. It's a big undertaking.
So from finding the partners to work with me on it to, speaking up for myself and being particular in certain things. So like you see the clovers on there, the 4, that's because it's a 4-part method, which meant there were 4 parts of the book.
Yeah.
And also I often talk about 4 key areas of life: personal, professional, health, and financial. How do we make them work in synergy? So there was a lot that was going into it that I was so focused on. I want everybody to be empowered by their joy.
Yeah.
The same way that I have been, because I know that goal crushing is a team sport. And together, we're going to not only make our own lives better, but truly make the world a better place.
Absolutely.
It was so hard, but I knew that, especially in these tumultuous times, I was reading the other day a study and it said that only 28% of people think that now is a good time in the job market where there are quality jobs, not just jobs, quality jobs.
Yeah.
And that crushes me,
Yeah.
right? To think about that.
Like less than, like almost like only a
Not even-
quarter,
right.
quarter of
Not even-
jobs,
barely a
like,
quarter.
yeah.
And so I really wanted to make sure that I could put something into the world that would bring people understanding and possibilities and a way to get there. Like I didn't want this to be a feel-good situation.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be action.
No, absolutely. And once you take that action,
Mhm.
it makes you feel good
Right.
because you're working in alignment with yourself, with your values, with your purpose. You know what brings you joy. That's where the real joy comes from. But it doesn't mean that it's easy. It means that, yes, there's work involved. You'll have to do the work. But is it going to be worth it? 120% yes. It's going to be worth it. Let's talk about another topic we briefly talked about like yesterday, which is triple win. You were talking about this concept with me, and I was like, you know what, girl, just save it for tomorrow. I really want to be surprised about it. So what is the triple win? It sounds amazing. And why does it matter in work within the organization?
Okay. I love that you asked also why it matters. So the triple win is when you want to get a win, not just for yourself, but also for your team and for the organization that you are employed at. Because whenever you are thinking about a triple win, then you're able to understand different compromise, right?
Yes.
Like if we're working with different teams, with people from different backgrounds and different mindsets, you're able to really see where the pieces of the puzzle come together so that you can create that triple win. But the other reason it's so important is because every single person at a company needs to understand where their contributions are, not only from a personal standpoint, but for the team and for the broader organization.
Yes.
And so when I look at the triple win, I like to think about a coworker that I had when I was working at an aerospace company. And her name is Gina. Gina, she's the best. We do not at all think alike. We're both highly intelligent women, but we just think so differently. I am very much like strategy. Gina is data. Okay.
Very analytical.
Yes.
So I think I can like relate to
You
that.
can relate.
I'm very much like data driven.
Yes. Please do not ever make me do the Tableau dashboard.
Right.
But Gina can create a Tableau dashboard that would literally bring you to tears because she can take the work that I'm doing from a strategic standpoint and she can help me understand like what data needs to be captured, how that data will be used, how we can bring it together. And we need both, right?
Yeah.
Both of our minds are incredibly complex and beautiful, but so incredibly different. And without Gina, my work would not have been the same. And without me, her work wouldn't have been the same. And so that's why I say the triple win comes when you understand your contribution and you're able to just go so far in your swim lane and then have gratitude and appreciation for the folks in the other swim lane. So again, that triple win it's a win for you, a win for your team, and a win for the organization.
What I'm hearing is like, own your strengths.
Yes.
And the departments and the areas where you're not strong, outsource it, bring others along with you. This way, nobody's left behind. And then you're winning. The rest of the team is winning. The whole organization is winning.
Exactly. We're not at competition.
Yeah.
We're working together.
I know the organization.
Right.
Yeah.
People love to get into competition. And I'm just like, I'm very aware that I'm a unique person. You're a unique person. And we're all bringing value to this world. So
absolutely.
Shine on.
Absolutely. Love that. Okay, so let's broaden the lens a little bit when we talk about leaders and leadership. I believe leadership doesn't stop at 5 p.m. when you check out of the office and go home, because I think every human being also shows up as a leader in their home setting, whatever that looks like. You're with your partner, you're with a family, you have kids. Whatever that looks like, how does someone carry the same joy first mindset at home and become a better leader for their family?
Right. And this is such an important topic because it's a juggling act, right?
Yeah.
And so I always say you need to, this is why the first part of the methodology is so important, because you're goal setting from a place of joy. But you're not just setting one goal, you're setting personal goals, professional goals, health goals, and financial goals. So that you're looking at yourself with the full 360 lens and saying, okay, if I'm the leader of my life, this is what it looks like. And I have these people to take into account. whether it's people at home or people at work, and understanding how to communicate with folks in your life, right?
Yeah.
Leadership requires very transparent and vulnerable communication, which can be, again, hard at times.
Yeah.
And so that's why this method isn't something to start and stop, right? It's something to build as a way of living, which is why it doesn't stop at the workplace. It also bleeds into your home life. And so I don't know about you, but there are times when I've been all in at work and I had to be very transparent with people in my personal life that this is what's happening right now. And I might not be showing up the same way as a friend or as a daughter. But then there are times when I'm like, okay, I want to dedicate more time in my personal life. And so maybe I don't want to be, the forefront of a project at work. Maybe I want to take a little bit of a backseat because I'm making more room. But if you understand your goals in those 4 areas, then that's when joy becomes your decision-making compass and you know what to say yes to and what to say no to.
Absolutely. That's where the boundaries come from. I think a lot of times we are talking about boundaries now a lot, which is a positive thing to do. But at the same time, we are not really understanding when and where to apply those boundaries. A really good influencer who I follow, and he's a designer too, Christo. And he talks a little bit about what you're just touching upon, like leadership at home. And one of the things that he says is like, you know what? A lot of times, like, I've realized that I show up very confident, very like defined in my role as a dad and as a husband, and I can talk back to my partner or my wife. But when I go to work, he's like, I'm not like that. And he was finding this and he's like, I had to ask myself, if I can do that at home, why can't I do that at work where honestly, to me, my work matters more or equally well? I think that gives a lot of confidence. And I thought about that when he said that. And I was like, so true.
Each are practice for the other.
Yeah.
You're communicating at home, you're communicating at work.
Exactly.
And they extend.
Because as humans, and I'm a physiologist by training, so I'll tell you, like, human beings, like our mind and body, our brain and body, they're always looking for alignment.
Yes.
With actions that we are taking, everything, like our body goes towards, we call it homeostasis, which is called balance, right? It's a scientific term for balance. So but how does our body achieve that balance? From alignment.
Yes.
So if you're showing up as one person at home and as another at work, your body and brain is like, I have no idea
what's going on.
What's going on?
Right.
Something is off.
Yes. And I want to pause here because I think there's a lot of buzz in the air, if you will, about, I hear people say, I want to bring my whole self to work. I think there's a difference in alignment and bringing your whole self. Because your whole self, like I said, there's 4 key areas: the personal, professional, health, financial, and they can move in alignment. But that does not mean that you owe your work everything, right?
Sure.
Within you. And so you have to understand, yes, I'm going to work on my communication skills both at home and in the office. But that doesn't mean that you have to deny yourself of privacy, if you will, or that you have to put everything on the table at work. There can be layers. I talk about it as like it's your bus of life. Some people and things are in the front of the bus. Some are in the back. Some are in the middle. Some are getting kicked off your bus of life, right? There is a spectrum of trust and of comfort and of, which parts of you would like to bring to the table. So you can be in alignment, but also be selective.
I love that. I think I love that definition of like a different definition of boundaries. And I think you said it so well.
Thanks.
So to wrap it up, what is one thing a viewer or listener of our podcast, a practical tip? Because my listeners are always looking for like practical tips. what is one thing they can take away from your framework, from your book, from our conversation today to show up as a better leader, as a joyful leader? What can they do like tomorrow?
The biggest thing that I would say for everyone out there is embrace what I call the 3 C's of joyful living. And so that is cheer for others. So you need to celebrate those successes of those on your team. You need to celebrate your own wins. When people see you doing that, it becomes an acceptable practice and an expected practice in the workplace and at home. And then the last is continue building community. You don't have to be a hero. You don't have to do it on your own. And so those 3 C's really are about cheering for others, celebrating for your own success, and community building.
Yes.
So keep it simple. Just do those 3 things.
Wonderful. I love those 3 C's. Okay, so I want to take some time to highlight your book because it's such a big accomplishment. Congratulations, really.
Thank you.
I know, it's labor of love and hard work. And I want to just highlight the book. Oh, you. Mm-hmm. I love how you have those clover leaves over here. And look at the colors. I was just telling Bosee yesterday, I'm like, I just love the colors, the yellow and then the purple really pops. And talk a little bit about the yellow.
Yes, as you see, I'm so strategic. Everything has purpose. So the yellow is a joyful color. Like if you look at color theory, it brings up light and happiness in folks. And so I really wanted that there. Purple is a royal color, and I believe we're all royalty. Purple is a royal color because it was very hard to make back in the day clothes that had purple. So it brings that warmth and that belonging. And I wanted everybody to know that they are royal and that they can be joyful.
We are all royal. You are royal. So own it. Where can people find this book? And if they want to get their own copy, which you should, where can people find it?
So my website is goalandgrind.com, which is my company's name, because we're setting big goals and we're grinding them out one step at a time. You can also buy this at any local bookstore. Just let them know you'd like to get it. Barnes & Noble, Amazon. It's sold everywhere books are sold. And yeah, you can get it on my website. Again, goalandgrind.com has a list of all the retailers to make it easy.
Wonderful. And one last question, because my podcast attracts a lot of executives, a lot of HR professionals, a lot of benefit managers, and they're like, we want to bring joy to our organization. I'm pretty sure after listening to this episode, they're like, we want to work with this girl. So Bosee, where can they find out more about your work and how can they connect with you?
Definitely. I'm very big on LinkedIn and I'm always sharing more there. So even if you're not bringing me in, please feel free, follow me on LinkedIn to get more tips about joyful leadership. But again, go to my website, goalandgrind.com. I work with a lot of teams on their offsites for their internship planning and rotational analysts to make sure that everyone knows how to build influence.
Goalandgrind.com to find out where it is available at this time. Thanks again for joining us and stay joyful. Bye for now.
Bye. And thank you, Aisha, for having me today.
So much fun. Thank you.